viewers, do not deceive you. The Christmas decorations are finally up, and they are up for good. And by for good, I mean until the end of December. And by finally, I mean, well, now that Thanksgiving's over, I really have no excuse. So yesterday I went out to buy some top quality, premium, cream of the crop Christmas lights. And then I spent 3.5 hours trying to figure out how to put them up. Oh shit, the manual's upside down. Wait, that actually didn't help at all. On to more pressing topics. Well, I mean, I need to figure out how to segue from talking about hanging up Christmas lights to talking about video game reviews. Ooh, wait, I think I got something.
Video game players are a very picky bunch. They need to play video games and they need to hate everything about them. I mean, it's a well-known fact that people sink all their hours into the games they hate the most. Why else do you think people spend so much time playing League of Legends, Fortnite, and Call of Duty? Exactly, because they fucking hate themselves and the game.
Listen, I've played 60 seconds of League of Legends mobile, and I completely understand why people hate it so much.
It's just kind of this stigma surrounding the gaming landscape that everyone in it has something to complain about at a moment's notice. It doesn't really matter who they're complaining to or what they're complaining about, it's just really the only way we can feel something, you know? But arguably the most complained about thing in the gaming community is how objectively good a game is, and more specifically, how good it is in comparison to other games, and the easiest way to do that is to assign an arbitrary number to it.
Alright, and for NieR Automata, we'll give it a 2 out of 10.
And I mean, this isn't exclusive to video games. I can think of about 100 different things that get ranked on a scale. Movies, music, food, clothes, cars, Sharpies, political parties, 93 more things. However, with more prominent topics on that list, more specifically consumable media, there are people that review things as a job.
And the best part about those people is that everyone fucking despises them.
And for some reason, people get really mad when anyone decides to review a video game and then put a number at the end of it. Under any review for any game from any person, you will find at least one other guy saying that it's the worst review they've ever seen in their entire life, and the reviewer was paid off to give the game a good score, or they just can't appreciate a game when they give it a bad score.
And in my opinion, the reason people get so heated over reviews in the first place is because, well, fundamentally they don't work. But in order to understand that, we have to go over why people don't like them.
I think the biggest problem with reviews from big review sites like IGN and GameSpot and whatnot is that they try to generalize things too much. The goal of the reviews is to be snappy, list a couple key points about the game, throw a big number up at the end, and let people get on with their day. And this works fine on paper, but unfortunately what happens is that it just kind of feels like they don't really back their scores up enough. In an attempt to streamline things, they don't really go into enough detail about what parts of the game are good or bad, and in turn, this starts to have a lot of reviews start to blend together and sound the same, and then you get the illusion that no one working at these sites has any idea what they're talking about.
Well, I think I forget to mention that reviewers drink 8 gallons of vinegar before actually starting a review.
There are a lot of infamous video game reviews out there, and a lot of that infamy comes from the unbelievably absurd things the reviewers say. For example, too much water in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire.
I would argue that any water is too much water. On a completely unrelated note, I am extremely lightheaded, and my doctor says I'm dehydrated.
Or what about
the way he leaps off of rooftops and flips backwards to face the camera before falling into a headfirst dive is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
What?
I know, could forget about the old classic, a game makes you feel like a character.
Insomniac Games' adventure strives to make you feel like Spider-Man.
Arkham Asylum makes you feel like you're Batman.
Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4 to make me feel like Spider-Man.
Batman Arkham City makes me feel like Batman.
Gameplay that made me feel like Spider-Man.
How exactly would you know what feeling like another person feels like?
And then there's everyone's favorite, comparing a game to Dark Souls, because everybody knows that Dark Souls was the first hard video game, and every other hard video game after it is just copying it, obviously.
It's just the same repeated lines over and over again across every game journalist website. So now not only does every review feel the same within a site, but all reviews feel the same.
Like, it's just repeating a popular phrase because you can't be bothered with actually describing how something is. Like, comparing a game to a notoriously hard game like Dark Souls is gonna get a lot of people's attention. Or sometimes you can't really put into words how cool a game is other than say it makes you feel like a character. It's not very original, but it does get the general population's attention, and that's kind of the goal.
And then you start to get the reviews where it feels like the reviewer didn't even play the same game everyone else got, and they were just paid off by the game's publisher to give it a good score. Now let me give you a fairly recent example.
Now, I have not played Deathloop, but from what I've gathered from other people online, it's a pretty solid experience. Not perfect by any means, but definitely some fun ideas and something you'll get your money's worth out of. IGN gave it a 10. There's sort of a couple other websites.
I smell bullshit!
Okay, look, I get that everyone has different experiences with different games, and I get that it's not really fair for me to say someone's wrong about a game when I haven't even played it myself. But what I am saying is that it looks a little fishy when the majority of people who have played the game are giving it an average of 8, and you give it a 10.
This is kind of my problem with giving things number scores, because, believe it or not, people have opinions.
There are actually two problems I have with number scores. Number one is that people are always going to get mad at them because, like I said before, everyone experiences a game differently. A game I really like could be the bane of someone else's existence. It's all based on preference, and there's not really a whole lot we can do to change that. It's really hard to give an objective score in the video game world because giving a score in and of itself is completely subjective. Because even the argument could be made that a broken, unfinished, and rushed game from 20 years ago was better than a high-quality modern game because someone got more enjoyment from it, and so they'll rank it higher. I mean, that's not always the case. Sometimes they'll see the game as objectively very bad and recognize it shouldn't have a high score, but even still, they'll still prefer it over another game. It's weird. It's just weird. The whole system's weird. It's literally trying to turn opinions into facts, and that's why reviews make people so angry.
And my other issue is a little less deep. I just think numbers are stupid.
Something that's always kind of bothered me is that a 7 out of 10 is the score for an average game. It doesn't really have that many issues, but it's nothing really spectacular either. It's a 7 out of 10. But when you think about it, that doesn't make any sense because the average should be the middle of the road, a 5 out of 10. To illustrate my point, let me give you a pretend scenario. Let's say I offer you a 1 out of 10 game and a 4 out of 10 game. Which one are you going to pick? Probably the 4 out of 10 game, because while they're both definitely bad, at least the 4's slightly better. But now if I bring in a 9 out of 10 game, well then obviously you're going to pick that game now, but do the 1 and the 4 have any differences between each other at base value now? Well, of course not, they're both plenty below average, so why does it even matter? Basically how it goes is 10, perfect, maybe 1 or 2 minuscule issues. 9, very good, maybe a few slightly more prominent issues that still don't detract from the experience. 8, good, definitely still worth your time and money. 7, average, not the best, but you'll still probably have a good time with it. 6, not great, a lot of issues, and while there's still probably some enjoyment to be found, it's most likely not worth your time. Shit. If you're not really thinking about it, then do you even notice the difference between a 1 out of 10 and a 5 out of 10? No! You just never buy either of them or never think any of them ever again!
And for that, I blame the public school system.
And of course now you're probably thinking, well, Drew, if you're so smart, what should we do about it instead? And the simple answer is, just stop using numbers, and the slightly more complicated answer is to basically keep doing the same thing, just ditch the number at the end. Reviews need to cover all aspects of a game, what it does well, what it fails at, any game-breaking glitches, what it's similar to, and whether or not the reviewer personally enjoyed it. If you just provide all this information, people can judge whether or not to buy a game.
Because while reviews are opinionated at the end of the day, not having a number leaves a little more room for interpretation to the consumer. Of course, I also understand having a number is a quick and easy way to just get a general idea of how good a game is if you don't feel like using your brain for 8 minutes. But don't worry, there is a solution to this problem as well. It's called Do What Everything Else Does.
There just so happens to be this fancy little website called Metacritic, where you can get reviews for movies, shows, and video games. However, there also happens to be this handy little number next to the score the critics gave the content called the user score, which is literally the exact same thing as leaving a 1 to 5 star review on a loaf of bread on Walmart's website. And this is probably the best way to give a number score to something. Just have the general public leave a score and then take an average of that. Because who's going to be more honest? Critics who review things for a living, or a bunch of people taking the time out of their day to review something for free? That being said, people can be biased. I mean, I don't really like Fortnite either, but come on guys, it's not bad. But when you face an angry horde of people leaving bad scores because they're angry, that's what you can turn to the reviews for. Have someone less biased tell you about the game and their experience with it.
Speaking of which, one thing, make sure the person giving the review actually gives a shit.
Now, I've mentioned a few problems with reviews so far, but arguably the biggest problem you could run into is getting someone to review the game that either doesn't care or doesn't know what they're talking about. Here's a message to all video game review sites for future reference. If you're doing a review on a platformer, get someone who plays a lot of platformers. If you're reviewing a racing game, have someone with lots of racing game experience do it. And if you're reviewing a shooter, don't get me. And if you're reviewing a video game, get someone who actually plays video games to do it. Because if you don't, no one will take your review seriously because the reviewer has no idea what they're talking about, no previous experiences to build an opinion on. They will sound like an idiot and the entire review will just fall apart.
Well, that's the wacky world of video game reviews. I suppose that even with everything I've suggested, nothing's really ever going to change with these things. And maybe that's a good thing, you know? If video game reviews never change, then gamers will always have something to get mad about. Just like normal people and putting up Christmas lights! Yes! I did it! I found a segue! I'm a genius!